Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the BSc Horizon. So, as we continue our series on the Department of Biological Sciences, so today we have a special guest with us in the house. So, today we have Lydia. So, Lydia is currently doing a PhD in Biological Sciences, specifically in Botany. How are you feeling today?
Um, I'm feeling all over the place, but okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule for us
Thank
to
you.
have this conversation. So maybe as an icebreaker, since you're doing botany, like what is your favorite plant and why is it your favorite?
Okay, for me, that question, I don't like it because for me it's broad. As a person who's doing botany,
Mm,
I've seen plenty of plants, and I know, well, I've studied their characteristics and all of that and all of that. So when you ask me about my favorite plants, I overthink this
mm,
question. I have to think about the whys. Why is it my favorite plants? So I'm biased into the group of plants that I'm working on right now. I'm working on Aspalathus. Aspalathus is the rooibos group.
okay.
So that group is my favorite as a whole, particularly because of its very remarkable strategies. It's a very nice plant. It's reserved, and I feel like it best describes me. It's it's popular in the Cape. It's native to the Cape. But if you go to the mountains or the fields of the Cape, it doesn't stand out. You will see the proteas, they stand out. Aspalathus is hiding there. But it resurrects. Those are the group of plants that after fire, they they find a way of hiding below the ground, and after fire they resprout or they reseed and they
Mm,
come alive. And also they don't like competition. So when all these other intrusive plants come in, they die down, they go lie underground and then come back up. So I like that. They best describe me because I'm also a reserved person. I
mm.
don't like a lot of busyness, competition. No, that's where I exclude myself when situations are like that. So yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I didn't know that about rooibos plants. That's cool. Um, so maybe as we start this podcast, if
Mhm.
you can think back to when you were in matric,
Mhm.
what type of a student were you, and then how did that sort of like influence what you did in undergrad?
Interestingly, in high school, I was not the kind of student you would expect me to be. I was not the bookworm kind of student. No, I was actually all over the place. Yeah, I was almost like a wildcat. You know that wildcat game from Uno, flipping from being a problem student, and but also you'll find me at the top achievers list as well.
Oh,
So
you're
I
one
was,
of those. I
yeah, I
see.
was I was there top achiever, but you also in this naughty list as well. So
Mm,
yeah, what influenced my choice is that I went to a technical secondary,
mm,
and so science, engineering, graphic design was the hype of my school there. We did have accounting, but we had limited options. So there were just those three. And there were more opportunities for the science student. There were bursary opportunities for science student. We were taken to, it was then called Medunsa. It's now
mm.
called
Sefako Makgat. Mhm.
Sefako Makgato now. So we had field trips and all of those things. So yeah, it feels like we were being drawn into science from my school. So yeah, because science was just all hyped up.
Okay. And how did you then find the transition from matric into undergrad? And like, what were your most biggest like culture shock at university, and how did you sort of adjust, and how long did it take to adjust to the lifestyle at uni?
So I'm a girl from a township. I'm a girl who came from township and moved to a city. So language barrier was a huge thing. So I moved from, speaking my vernacular every day as a form of communication, to, when you go to university, it's a combination of people you meet from all over. We don't speak the same language, and we have to find a meeting point. Common ground is English, so you have to shift away from speaking vernac to speaking English every day.
Every
And
day.
yeah, I found it challenging at first, navigating between, I'm new in the city. It's a big university, number one. Also, I did my undergrad not here at UCT. I did my undergrad at the University of Johannesburg. So, adjusting to the university setup, finding my modules and all of that. And also, just your basic stuff, making friends, communicating with your friends. That was just, it was for the first 6 months were hard, basically. They were hard in terms of school. They were hard in terms of adjusting, making friends and all of that. So I spent the first 6 months alone. The second semester became better. I started, adapting, making friends. I found friends actually. And now it's about now the modules now.
Okay. I think that's true, because I think firstly, especially like if you're the only one there and you don't have most of your high school friends there, and then you have to start saying, "Hi, my name is
Make friends again.
Lydia. Hi, can you be friends?" And that can be sort of like
Yeah.
hard.
Yes,
So then, why botany? Like, why? So maybe to someone out there who's wondering, like, what the heck is botany and why should I do botany? So,
yeah.
sort of like sell it to us. Why should people do botany?
It's so funny how I ended up in botany. I didn't know nothing about botany. Before I actually did botany, I didn't know anything about it. From high school, I had those highlighted career choices options in my head. I wanted to be a doctor like everyone else who's coming from township, those highlighted ones. I did science. Naturally, you want to go to medicine. But also, personally, internally judging myself, I just thought, I don't know, I don't think I'm strong enough emotionally to be a doctor. I don't think I would survive being a doctor. So I went into the next better thing, next close thing to being a doctor in my head. So I majored in biochemistry and botany, and the idea would be to further on with biochemistry. That was what I thought. I was gonna do biochemistry to the finish line. But then in my final year of my BSc, I just fell in love with botany. We came actually here from Johannesburg. We came here for a field trip. You know what? Cape Town is beautiful. Everywhere you go, everywhere in this world, and they'll tell you Cape Town is just it's really beautiful. So we came here. Number one, it's rich in biodiversity. We all know that Cape Town is just rich in biodiversity. So we did our field work here. We went to a couple of places. We went to French Hook, Vista, all of those mountains. Interesting. It was so fun. It was so nice. And I enjoyed being out there in nature. And so basically, so when I had to make my choice moving from undergrad to postgrad, it was about, okay, where do I feel most happy? Which place brings me most, comfort, relaxation, and all of that. Because in the end, it's all about that. You want to take a career that you're going to be happy about. It's not going to be tiresome,
burden
a
on
burden.
you.
You don't want that. You want to be happy, so that your supervisors don't end up, nagging you about doing the work. Yeah, it's because you like it. So I thought about biochemistry, and I thought it was going to be it was going to limit me into being in the lab all the time. And is that what I want? No. I like being out there in nature.
The field.
So with botany, it's the combination of both. You go there in nature, you collect your plants, you actually get the feel of being out there. You come back with that knowledge back into the lab, which is what I'm doing. You come back into the lab, you include the sciences in what you've found out there, or what you've brought in or collected from out there. So yeah, it's almost like when you get tired of the lab, go out to the field and
Okay.
come back to the lab. Yeah.
So it's the best of both worlds,
It's the
lab
best of
and
both
field
worlds.
work.
Exactly.
Okay. So I mean, in the context of like a Black African child, there's sort of like a stigma against doing like a BSc and going to study plants.
Yeah.
So then, like, what is your comment on um such a stigma? And also, while we're on that, then what would be your advice to maybe a young African female that is interested in studying plants, but then you know how Black parents can be like, plants, eh? What are you gonna do with plants? So
I
like,
know.
what is your say on that?
Yeah, you're right. It's not well understood. So also when I mean I'm still struggling even now. To tell my grandmother that I'm doing botany. She doesn't understand. Every time it's even worse right now that I'm doing my PhD, because what she says to her friends is that my daughter is a doctor,
Mm,
which it becomes a problem because it's not usually understood. But it's just one of those things that you have to. The thing is, as long as people don't understand the careers that come after whatever particular stream that you've chosen, if they don't understand what comes after that, then they can't support you.
mm,
So if your parents don't know what you're going to end up doing with your botany, then they're going to be like, are you going to do gardening? Which is what most people think. That's the
mm,
misconception of most people. When you say I'm doing botany, they think, okay, you're studying gardening, which is not that. So there's plenty career option. I mean, number one, if you go all the way to PhD, then you can do academia,
mm.
where you I mean educate the next coming generation. And I sit here as a proud sister to you.
Mm-hmm.
um, there's that. There's a new trend right now where people have shifted towards using your natural skincare products. They want to incorporate plants into whatever. So people are shifting towards using the synthetic methods into
Mm.
the more natural
Sure.
methods.
Mm.
So plants are now included into, medicine,
Mm.
skincare products.
Mm.
They included into almost everything. So you can go into pharmacology with your botany degree.
Mm.
You can go into your conservation biology, where
Mm.
you advise. So you can work with companies like your Sun Park, Cape Nature. There's many other. What is this? WWF or Sunbee.
Mm.
So you can go into those kind of fields. So there's actually very broad career opportunities in botany.
Okay. I think the stigma comes from just lack of information
Understanding.
and also misinformation,
Exactly.
because I think would all like from my side when I enrolled for a BSc, I don't even know what is a BSc, like what am I going to do?
That's
And
right. Yeah.
then when I looked at like biology, it's like, oh, studying about the human. Yeah, I love studying about the human body. And then you get to see that there's a lot under biology.
Definitely.
There's botany, there's paleo, there's marine. I'm like, oh, was never aware of such things. And then also, like you mentioned, like you can go into different industries. I think a lot of people also they are not aware of that, and that's why
Yes,
there's this stigma.
definitely.
So then, like, in your opinion, how do you think we can break the stigma? Maybe if we take it to like, what do you think high schools can do to try and sort of
To
like break
advertise
the
it more.
stigma? Because mostly during career days, it's all about professional degrees like doctor, lawyer, and people rarely ever know like you can actually go do science and be a scientist.
That's yeah. That's another problem. But I think that we're trying lately. Or I mean, I think we are. Yes, I think we are trying to include your botanies. There's many community. What is the what are they called now? The community papers, whatever that are being issued. It's just getting people to read them,
Mm.
getting people to educate themselves. It's also another hard thing. I don't know. We can only go this far, and the other end has also
They need to meet you
supposed to meet.
guys, yeah.
Yeah, we need to meet each other halfway somehow. So I don't know. Just people, especially in the townships or rural villages.
Mm.
There's the main stigma that says studying plants, studying zoology, those are white people fields. And if we can just remove that stigma, that hate, because it's sometimes it's not like people don't know about these. It's just they've put race into it, and they're like, okay, we don't fit in here. This is not for us. This is for the other people. This is for the rich people. And if you remove that factor, if you remove that mindset, then it's not that people don't know. My grandmother, for instance, has been a floral, what is it called, florist. Yes. So she recently retired, but she's done floral arrangements. And well, when I told her that I was going into botany, she mainly thought that probably I want to follow her footsteps, be do floral arrangements. And I was like, no, I'm doing completely different. It's different from what you were doing. But yeah, but she didn't have that close-mindedness about the whole field of, studying botany, studying plants. I mean, she was excited about that opportunity, but that's because it was aligned to her, to what she was doing.
She was aware of.
She was aware. She was aware. She didn't put any race in it. So it's all about that, removing that aspect of, okay, this is limited to this kind of people. Just go into whatever that you like.
Okay. So then, like, while we're on that, then, why do you think representation matters in the sense of like having like more black people in science or women in STEM? And while we're on that, maybe to a young African woman, black African woman watching that also wants to do botany, what is then one piece of advice that you can then give to them to
Okay.
tell them like you belong? The world is your oyster. You don't need to follow all these stigmas and all these misconceptions that are being put on science.
I think I think the hard thing right now, especially with botany specifically, is the challenge of funding. There's limited funding on the module or the field itself. I think it would be easier if there was more funding, then more people would apply. And then probably, I mean, obviously, not obviously, but but if you look at fields like botany, you find that it's more represented by people who are affording to do it, and they didn't come here with with their with bursaries or NSFAS or anything like that. They probably afforded to do this because there's limited bursaries on this. More bursaries are more for your neurosciences, your biochemistry and all of that, and less for botany. And maybe if there were more funding, maybe there would be more black people represented in the field itself. I feel like that. Might be wrong. Anyways, for a black student or any student actually, any advice I would give to them would be persevere, I guess. And don't stop being curious. Don't stop being curious, and yeah, just be humble always. Those are the kind of advices I would give, yeah.
Okay. And maybe then if you can shift it to people that are currently like final year students like myself or people coming into final year, because we feel like there's this pressure on us when we are in final year having to decide what am I doing for postgrad. So like then how does one get to decide what to follow for postgrad? Because like it's been a stressful year. It's like what should I apply for? Like your lecturer will be like, oh, you're good in biochem, come do biochemistry.
What excites you more?
So there's always this stigma of like, okay, what am I doing now? Did I go do biochemistry because I'm good at it and my lecturer, I want to do this? But then how do you get to decide which pathway do you follow? And also what advices would you give to someone on making like an informed decision of what to do in postgrad?
Okay, so it's like what I said. What excites you more? Like how, like, where do you feel more comfortable in? Which space brings you more joy? Because when you do your postgrad, You don't want your supervisor to always come and just be reminding you, hey, did you submit this? Hey, did you do this? You don't want to pick a field, a career field that's gonna end up, I don't know, it's gonna end up being a burden to you.
Mm.
You wanna pick something that you'll be the one telling your supervisor about it. That, hey, this is what I discovered. I think we should do this. So you'll have more voice because you're excited to learn about it. Because you're reading on this. Because no one is pushing you to do the work, but you are pushing yourself, and you even pushing your supervisor. You are more excited to do the work. So going into postgrad, it's all about being excited about this project that you're going to be doing. Like, do you see yourself bringing in a change through this project? And does it make you happy?
Mm.
You don't want to be stressed. It's also mental health matters, right? You don't
Mm.
want to be stuck in this. If you're going into your masters, this is a 2-year program, sometimes 3. You don't want to go spend 2 years or 3 years stressed and depressed because this project is just draining you.
Mm.
And you're just thinking, when am I finishing?
Mm.
You don't want that.
Yeah, I
So
think it's important because I think at the end of the day, it's not about science being difficult, but it's about having the passion and the love for it. Because even if
definitely,
something is difficult, as long as you love it,
if you
you're
love
gonna
it,
be
you'll
fine.
fight. You'll fight with it.
Exactly. But then if you don't love it, that's a toll on your mental health. It's not something that's gonna
Exactly.
be fun.
Exactly.
So maybe like as you mentioned, like going into masters, which can be 2 years or 3 years, you wanna be doing something that you love.
Yeah.
Then I think also another question that we have as finally is like how do you draw the line? Like how do you know whether I need to end in honors? I need to go to masters. I need to go into PhD. I need to go into postdoc. Because I feel like that's also another stress that we have. It's like, okay, so now does
Where do
that
we
mean I need to
finish?
go all the way to PhD or like how do you know where should you end?
For me personally,
Mm.
it was so I started my project. I didn't When I started my postgrad, I didn't start on the Aspalathus that I earlier
Mm-hmm.
introduced. I started with this other group of plants called Cyanoclossum. They're in Boraginaceae family. And I specifically chose those ones because they had medicinal uses. And for
Mm.
me, I wanted something that related, like I said before, I wanted to do medicine. So something that was close to, the medicine vibe. So I was going to go into pharmacology or something like that. I went into my postgrad with that idea that maybe eventually I'll go into pharmacology,
Mm.
So I chose this group of plants. They have medicinal uses. So I did antimicrobial studies on them, did taxonomy, did molecular systematics on them. And the thing about honors is that it's very limited. It's 1 year, and there's so much that's happening in your honors year. There's modules, and there's research, this project that you're working on. So it's very you don't get enough time with this little baby. Eventually it becomes your baby. Your project becomes your baby. So you don't get enough time with it in the honors level
Mm.
because there's modules that keep interfering.
Mm.
So I started with that project. I couldn't see it to the finish line. I'm that person who likes to see things to the finish line. Once I start we need to wrap it up. I need to have closure.
Okay.
I
Uh-huh.
want closure. Okay, so I did that for my honors year, but my my findings were inconclusive
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't get enough time, and I had to leave it there so that I can wrap up my honors.
Mm.
So when I then went into masters, I was like, I want to continue with this. I left this thing; it was unfinished. I have an unfinished business,
Mm.
so it was the curiosity, I guess, that made me go all the way further. So, but there's other people who can say, I mean, there are opportunities that allow you to you can go into the job field or job market with your honors.
Mm.
So you don't have to go all the way to PhD. You can get a job as a researcher in companies like the Scion research companies like your Scion, your CSIR, yeah, those science or conservation biology.
Mm.
I mean, I'm talking now about my field.
Definitely. Mm.
Yes. So yeah, your conservation biology field, they do take students with honors. So you don't have to. feel the stress that, okay, if I do BSc in botany and biochemistry, I will have to do PhD. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Okay. So then we should just focus now on going into honors, and then as we're doing our honors, we'll get to know what to do next.
You
So
get to know the feel. It's like you decide every year.
as you go.
As you go, you decide. Yeah. I mean, after my master's, so I finished up this project in my master's, this porogeneity project in my master's, and after that, deep down, I did not want to come back to academic. I wanted to just go work. Unfortunately, it was during the very cruel time of the world at large. It was during those COVID year when I submitted my masters. It's very difficult to get jobs during that time, and so I was at home for about a year or so. Yeah, looking for jobs and all of that. It's very draining. It's a very draining process looking for a job. Until I decided to come back here. I did get some internships. 6 months internship. I got an internship in Pretoria, at Sunby, at the Biological Invasions Division, and I got another internship here at Kirstenbosch. So yeah, those at least they gave me a little bit of experience, work experience, and all of that. And I think it was during that the Kirstenbosch internship period where I thought carefully about what do I want to do next. Do I want to keep working, or do I want to go back to school? And the answer was I want to go back to school. I want to go back to school. I mean, it's exciting here. Honestly, it's like it's almost like a relaxed environment. It's a different feel.
Relaxed. I'm not too sure about that word, eh?
It's different at the workplace. It's
okay, fair.
It's very
compared to the work. Okay, fair point.
Compared, it's very different at the workplace. The workplace is you need to meet target. There's KPIs. There's this and there's that. Here, you're doing your project, and your supervisor. You probably will meet your supervisor once a month, or maybe once after 2 months or so. You the one doing more reporting to your supervisor. It's like you're almost like your own boss, especially in postgrad. You'll feel it. Master's, PhD, you're almost like your own boss, and you report back to your supervisor. Obviously, your supervisor is there to guide you. But it almost feels like you're your own boss, and it's about you, your pace, and all of that. There's people who do PhD for like 5-6 years. So you see, it's about your pace. No one is there to sit on your neck too much. So yeah, I guess that's the thing. I was like, I want to go back to school.
Okay. So then now, maybe then as a follow-up, given that you then decided to come back and do a PhD, so maybe to someone out there who's also interested in botany, if you can briefly share to us, like, currently, like, what questions are you trying to answer, like, through your project, and also, like, yeah, where is it headed, so that maybe people can know about the work that you're doing on your PhD, and like we can inspire people that want to go into botany to actually go for it.
Okay, so like I said, I shifted from that master's project I was doing, and now into the Cape Flora, Aspalathus. So Aspalathus is one of the. So we know just one species of Aspalathus. This is the Aspalathus linearis. I'm speaking scientific terms now.
Educate us.
Aspalathus linearis is the rooibos tea.
My favorite tea.
Yes. So, we just know one species, but this is in a group of 290 other species. So linearis is just one species in a group of those 290 species. And like I said before, Aspalathus, they, even though they are native here in the Cape, they're not out there. They don't make so much noise, and so they can tend to be forgotten.
They're just conserved. They're just there.
Conserved, yes.
Low key and the carpet.
They tend to be forgotten. So we are shifting right now to, I mean, the Cape region. is biologically diverse. We know that there's so many species, and we are now facing this challenge where some species are eventually approaching extinction without being studied. And in a large group like Aspalathus, we're facing that challenge that there's so many species that remain to be found, you know. So the questions that I'm answering is so we're answering the question of diversification within the group. So it's a group of 290 species, and they all look different from each other. So I'm doing taxonomy. Firstly, we name and we describe. And then I'm doing molecular systematics. So we study the genetic relationship between the plant, between Aspalathus itself and Aspalathus and the other relating groups. And we want to see how rapid they've diversified in this forever changing climate, you know. So we want to see how climate change has affected or influenced Aspalathus over the years, and how they will keep diversifying in future. We want to see how rapid this evolution is happening. So we're answering those kind of questions.
Okay, that is pretty cool.
Thank you.
I've always admired taxonomy and like molecular work in terms of like trying to identify species. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty cool stuff. So definitely, I think anyone who also admires taxonomy, I think it's a great field for them to come to be involved in. So maybe like as we close off our conversation, um, what would you say? How, because I think for science students, a nightmare for undergraduate science students is writing a research paper. Yo, guys,
Yeah.
I've
I
written like 4 or 5 throughout my undergrad, but every time it's been a struggle. Having to cite, having to know the structure, is it scientific enough? So, like, what tips can you give to us in terms of, course, in postgrad, obviously, we're going to be more focused on research. Does it ever get better? Maybe if I can put it that way, does it ever get better to like write a paper and also reading papers and citing and stuff?
yes, I think yeah, I guess it does. Yeah, writing a paper specifically gets better. It's different when you talk about a thesis. So, I mean, writing a paper is all about how many papers have you read. So it gets easier after so many papers that you've read. So it's always you have to go back into increasing your knowledge with these papers. You have to always keep reading, keep reading. It's just the work of a postgrad actually. Keep reading all these papers, so it makes it easier for you to write in the end. But also, as a postgrad, my biggest advice would be to start writing from first year. You will see when you do your masters, it's relaxed. Like I said, it's almost like a relaxed environment. No one is gonna be pressuring you that much, but you should pressure yourself, because if you don't pressure yourself from first year, you feel like a dead zombie in your first on your final year, because then you'll have to wrap up everything, and you'll have limited months, and you feel like you need to go back and read, and there's so many reading that you have to do. It's yeah, it becomes tedious. But if you start writing from the instant, like from the beginning, so when you start, you have to start with your proposal, right? You write your proposal, but then with your proposal, it's mainly literature writing, right? So if you make your proposal writing to almost like link in together with your broad literature writing, it becomes easier, because then when as you go about, you just fitting into what you've started with, you know. But if you don't write, and you sit, and in the end you have to write things from the beginning, you find that you've forgotten some of the things that you did last year. It's easy to forget things because you keep on doing, and also science is rapidly changing. So we find that
Definitely.
what you found last year is no longer the thing this year. Now, if you don't write things down, you don't even know what you found last year. Sorry. You don't even know what happened last year. So my advice is keep writing from the first
Yeah, from the get
month.
go, like
From the first month,
be
write
on
everything
point,
down.
so that everything is not just
You don't get
accumulated to the end and
overwhelmed.
it's
Yes,
overwhelming. Okay,
exactly.
definitely. Then maybe in closing, if you look back to when we were young, what advice will you give to your young self? something that you feel like if you would have known it back then, you would have transitioned easier. So, what advice would you give to your young self? Just you looking at yourself like back then now and
Oh
where you are
goodness.
right now.
Oh my goodness, that's a that's a tough one. Oh my God, what would I say? Man, what would I say to my young little self? I don't know. Did stop stressing, stop overthinking, be brave. Yeah, well, as a child, yeah. As a child, I used to overthink everything. You know, I didn't put myself out there because I would be overthinking. No, what will people say?
Mm,
So, well, it doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter. People will
mm,
always speak.
yeah,
People will always speak whether you are doing things correctly or you're doing them wrong.
yeah, I was gonna speak.
There's
Yeah.
always gonna be that thing. So ignore all the other extra voices. You know what matters is your internal voice. What's making you happy. I
Mm,
feel like if I didn't listen to my internal voice, I wouldn't actually be doing BSc. So eventually, I did find my voice.
mm,
So at least I didn't lose myself too much. But yeah, I was a top achiever in my high school and in my middle school. I used to do good at school generally, but I was always so modest about it. I was always sitting at the back, whenever they would call people and whenever my name would be called, I'll be always surprised that what me.
mm,
So I never viewed myself as that kind of person who'd get picked.
mm.
So yeah.
I think that's great advice because I feel like for a lot of people, I think the struggle is that imposter syndrome is just there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always like a war between deciding what's good for you and what's good for other people. And I always
Yeah,
feel like it's always important to just close off all the other voices and then listen, what do I want? And
exactly.
then that will
That's
be the right
important.
pathway for you.
It makes you happier.
Definitely.
It makes you
So,
happy.
thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I'm
Mm,
sure people out there are going to be inspired. I mean, I am inspired. By the way,
thank
guys,
you.
she used to be my demonstrator in first year, so this is pretty cool.
I'm a proud sister.
It's pretty cool. So, thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of people get to learn more about getting to decide what to do in their postgrad, and also
True.
hopefully for people wanting to do botany, they'll be inspired to
I
also
hope
follow
so.
botany. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Cool.
Thank you.